and away with a hint of a smile, as if I could read your mind. I wanted to say words I thought for a while, but I couldn't conjure none.
Hi everybody, so I hope you're well and having the most incredible day. As always, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are doing well. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you all of the books I read throughout January. Can we get a round of applause? She's only gone and read 14 books. 4. That is basically one book every other day. I feel so accomplished. I feel like I really smashed January. I went in there and I just showed it who's boss. Do you know what I mean? So I read 14 books. Granted, I don't have them all here to share with you because some were on audio. I do own the physical copies, but they're not currently at the flat. They're at my mum and dad's house, so I'm just going to insert photos for those. But yeah, 14 books. Anyway, just really proud of myself. Obviously, it doesn't matter how much you read every single month. I personally like to read as many books as possible because I have such an extravagant physical TBR, 430 books, that I just have to get through them really quickly. So I managed to get through 14 and today I'm going to be sharing them with you. So without further ado, we are going to dive right in. I hope you guys enjoy and carry on watching. So the first book I finished in January is The Final Offer by Lauren Asher, which means I completed a series in January. If you guys didn't know, I have a goal with myself to kind of get through as many of my series as possible because I was in the midst of like 13 series at one point, so I really want to try and condense that and be in maybe 3 or 4 maximum and kind of keep it at that level. So I managed to finish a series, which I'm so proud of myself for because this book had been on my TBR for absolutely ages. However, the sheer size of it did put me off, but I found it on Kindle Unlimited, so it kind of made it a little bit easier to read. But anyway, this is part of a 3-book series. It's the Dreamland Billionaire series. If you love Disney and you love kind of spicy romance books, you will love these. This one is about Callahan and Alana, so Cal and Lana, and you also have a little kind of extra person in the mist who I won't tell you about because it will ruin it for you. This is a sort of friends to lovers to enemies to friends to lovers. I absolutely loved it. I actually did get a little bit emotional reading this book. There were some really cute moments in here that kind of did have me tearing up a little bit. I didn't by any means like bawl my eyes out, but it was quite an emotional, really lovely read. And I don't want to go into this giving you guys too much information if you haven't read the other 2 books, but essentially the books are about 3 brothers and this is the final brother. He essentially has a task to complete before he gets his inheritance from his granddad, who passed away kind of before or within the first book. So before the first book, I mean right at the start. Anyway, that kind of is irrelevant. So the main kind of gist of this one is you have Callahan, who deals with an alcohol addiction, and you have Lana. Lana is his like best friend, like his childhood best friend, and then they sort of went out for a little while kind of, and then they broke up, and then they were kind of apart for a very long time and then got back together. And I don't really want to say too much about this other than the fact that I absolutely loved this book. I gave this one, let me just check, yes, I gave this one a 5-star. It was just such an easy read. It was so fun. I loved all the characters. There was so much found family in this book that just really like pulled at my heartstrings, and I absolutely loved it. Again, it's just another one of the books by Lauren Asher that I absolutely loved. I haven't read one of her books yet that I haven't enjoyed, so another 5-star from her. I absolutely loved it, and this is your sign to pick up this series. It is just so good. Another book which I finished in January, and you guys are going to be so proud of me. She finished it. Not only did she finish it, she enjoyed it. She gave it a 5-star. This was absolutely beautiful. I will say, obviously this one focuses on Nessa and Cassian. If you haven't read books 1 to 4, I'm not going to spoil this for you because if anybody spoiled any of this for me, I'd be heartbroken. And I know this technically isn't the end of the A Court of Thorns and Roses kind of series. However, this is the end as of right now. So I'm gonna say this was a beautiful ending, obviously a 5-star read. I don't really want to tell you much about it. The only thing about this I didn't like is that it was in 3rd person, so I didn't find myself loving it as much as the others. I mean, it was still a 5-star. It was still absolutely phenomenal. It was also just gigantic, and I'm not going to tell you much more about it. I'm really sorry that I can't tell you anything about this book other than the fact it's a series about fae, and it's quite I don't really know how to describe it without ruining it. Obviously it's a fantasy book, duh, but it's just so good. If you guys haven't read the ACOTAR series and you want to get into fantasy, I highly recommend it. A Court of Thorns and Roses was my first fantasy book and I absolutely devoured it. So if you want to get into it, I highly recommend. But yeah, another 5-star, just incredible. So the next book is one which has been on my physical TBR for probably over a year and a half, and I went on my Goodreads and I basically did the reverse order of date added, and I just wanted to get through a bunch of those books this month because there are so many books on there that I've had for so long, and I just thought, you know what, I'm excited to read all my new books, but let's read some of these old ones. So the next book I picked up in January was Dating Dr. Dill. I actually listened to this on audiobook. So basically this book is a fake dating sort of marriage of convenience style book. It was way spicier than I thought it was going to be, which obviously if you guys know I do like a spicy romance, so I did enjoy it for that aspect. I did only give this one a 3-star. I didn't feel myself loving the characters as much as I thought, and I wasn't swooning, I wasn't kicking my feet, and I haven't really thought about this book since. So character wise you have Karina Mann and Dr. Prem Verma. So Dr. Prem Verma is basically Dr. Dill. He is the one that has the TV show where he kind of goes through a lot of doctor related things, and Karina Mann basically is wanting to have a love story like her parents. Her parents kind of had a really beautiful marriage, a beautiful relationship, and I believe her mum passes away. Yes, her mum passed away and her dad has decided to like sell the family home, but Karina is like, absolutely not, like this is my house, like I want to keep it, but she can't afford it, and the only way she can kind of get her inheritance as it were is if she marries. So basically her and Dr. Prem Verma is basically fake dating, fake marriage kind of vibes. I don't really know what else happened in this book, if I'm honest. It wasn't my absolute favourite, as I said. It's just a nice easy read. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but if you like that kind of plot line you might enjoy it. The next book I read in January was 7 X's by Lucy Vine. I think this might be a relatively newer release, I'm not too sure. I did spot this one in WH Smith's a while ago. It was kind of like at the front, so I think it might have been a newish release. This one essentially is about a girl called Esther who is out with her 2 friends and she decides to read this magazine, and within the article of the magazine it basically says that you have 7 exes in life and one of them is your soulmate, and they kind of list like what each ex means, like your first love, your first heartbreak, etc. And she basically goes through the motions of getting in touch with all 7 exes, finding out whether that one was her sort of missed opportunity, basically her missed love, her missed chance at romance or whatever. And it was a very nice read. I gave it 3 stars. It was good, it was fun, similar to Dating Dr. Dill. Like it was good but nothing really stood out to me. I didn't read this kicking my feet and I wasn't really that obsessed with it. It was just a very nice kind of refreshing sort of read. After reading Court of Silver Flames, I was trying to think of what it was called, Akasoft? I don't even know what the short term of this book is, but anyway, after reading this I felt like my brain did kind of need to have a little bit of a fantasy break, if you know what I mean. It was very high fantasy in that book, so this was nice to kind of cleanse my palate, I suppose. Again, this was nice, it just didn't stick with me, so that is why I gave it a 3-star. The next book I read in January was my book club pick of the month pick. So if you guys don't know, me and my friend Kelsey, we have a book club. It's called the Across the Pond Book Club. You can find us on Instagram, and our book of the month for January was Never by Jessa Hastings. Now I was very excited about this book. I was really looking forward to it. I have not read anything by Jessa Hastings before, and this is a like Peter Pan retelling, I suppose. This is more, I wouldn't necessarily call it a retelling because the main character Daphne is kind of a descendant of Wendy. So Peter knows Wendy, he met Wendy already, and this is kind of like, you know how the Disney film Neverland came out and you've got Jane? It's kind of like that, but a few more generations have passed, if you know what I mean. So this book was really good. So I originally, I'm not gonna lie, as soon as I closed this book I gave it a 5-star, but after thinking about it for a couple of days I did result to giving it a 3-star. Now I know that seems really strange for me. I usually throw out 5 stars left, right and centre, but the more I thought about this book, the more there were a few things in this book I didn't particularly enjoy. I don't want to ruin it to any of you guys that want to read it because it will kind of spoil the whole thing, but essentially you've got Daphne who is told all her life that Peter is going to come. Peter is going to come through your window and he's going to take you to Neverland. And he'd also taken her mum, her grandma, very bizarre, and she was expected to go, but he didn't come. And she turned, I think, nearly 18. She was like 17 and a half or 17 and 3/4 at this point. And Peter turns up, they go to Neverland. Daphne basically falls out the sky because Peter gets distracted by the mermaids and like goes away somewhere. And who comes around the corner but Hook? Now, Jameson Hook is basically a descendant of Captain Hook. So I think it was his dad was Captain Hook, and you have Jameson. Now Jameson is, it's really hard to describe this story without spoiling it for you, but basically this is like a romance. I don't want to say a love triangle, but is it a love triangle? I think it would be a love triangle, but also Daphne really just grated me. In this book, there were so many things that Daphne did that I did not agree with. There were so many things that Peter did that I did not agree with. And there were a few things that Jameson did that I did not agree with. However, I really like this book. I will say though, there were a few spicy-esque scenes in here that I did not expect. And between a few characters that I did not expect also, and it kind of caught me off guard. So I will continue the series. I didn't not like it enough to not want to continue the series, but I will say it was not what I expected, but I did enjoy the writing style. So for that reason, I gave it a 3, and as I said, I will definitely buy the second book because I need to know what happens next. Next up, we have Twisted by Renee Rocco. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, when I put this book on my Amazon wishlist, it was probably from like one quote that I'd seen and I added it to my wishlist. Now, this is a Rapunzel retelling. However, it is very dark, very spicy, very just spice heavy. I mean, it was pure spice, literally. It's a very similar story to Rapunzel. You kind of get the idea. She's trapped in the tower and then she manages to come out and essentially is greeted with 3 gentlemen, and that's basically the plot line. It was good. It wasn't my absolute favorite, I'm not gonna lie. Like, you guys know I do love a spicy romance, but I feel like I love a spicy romance when the plot is really good, and the plot in this one like wasn't my favorite. I gave this one a 3-star. Like, I would probably continue the series. It is a series, obviously this is book 1. I just didn't find myself again like really itching to read it. I just really enjoyed it because it was a good cleanse, because it was very small. It was very nice to read this after Never and have a nice cleanse from that. But again, a 3-star, not my absolute favorite. And I'm not really gonna tell you too much about this one. It's basically a spicy Rapunzel retelling. That's all you need to know. The next book I picked up in January, very similarly to the last one, is Mountains Made of Glass by Scarlett St. Clair. Now, I picked this one up. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, it was a small book and I thought, numbers, let's go for numbers this month to get ahead of the game. My Goodreads goal for the year is 100 books, so I really want to try and get ahead of myself, and I thought, let's go for the small ones. Now, I've not read anything by Scarlett St. Clair before. Do I have pretty much all of her books? Yes. Have I read any of them? No. And I was really excited about this one. There is more books coming out within the series. I think her goal is to have 7 or 8 books within this series, and I won't tell you for why because I don't want to spoil it, but it does make sense when you read it. So this one is basically a fairy tale retelling. It's giving me Beauty and the Beast vibes. It was very good, very quick. I personally would have loved it to be longer. I think if it was longer, you would have gotten so much more of the backstory. It was only 203 pages. I just feel like I wanted more, but also it was a really nice kind of easy quick read. Again, I think I read it in like 1 or 2 sittings. It was just so good. Rating wise, I gave this one a 4-star. It wasn't an absolute like kicking my feet, obsessed with it kind of vibe, but I am really excited to see where the other books take us in this journey, and I'm just really looking forward to the rest of it, and also reading some more of her writing because I really enjoyed the writing style. So without spoiling it, it's a spicy Beauty and the Beast fairy fae retelling kind of story, and it was very enjoyable, I'm not gonna lie. So the next 3 books were all part of a series, and did I complete the entire series? Yes, I did. So I listened to all 3 of them on audiobook, and I actually really enjoyed them, I'm not gonna lie. I know that this particular author is very hit and miss and is very controversial, so I'm not going to talk about it for too long, but what I will say is I had these books physically probably for about nearly 2 years now. I needed to get them off my TBR, and that is why I read them this month. So the first book I read was Slammed. This is part of a series by Colleen Hoover, if you guys don't know. I gave this one a 3-star. This was a student teacher vibe. Did I expect it? Absolutely not. But also, when I was 15 and 16, I probably would have really enjoyed this book. It was very easy to read, very easy to follow along. There wasn't much spice at all, to be honest, and also it was more of a student teacher and student. Like, the age range was very legal, I'm pretty sure. It was just more so the like authorityness of it was a bit hit and miss, if you know what I mean. I would be lying to you if I said I knew what the girl and the guy's name were. I think the guy was called Will, and I cannot remember what her name was, but essentially this is is about a girl who moves across the country with her brother and with her mum. Opposite sort of the street is a guy called Will, and they basically go on a date. It's a very quick turnaround. They go on a date like the day after she moves in. It's a very quick romantic kind of vibe, and then the day after their date they realise, oh, he's my teacher at school, and it's kind of that sort of story. Not a lot really happened. From what I remember, all I know is that one of the characters is very terminally ill. I'm not going to say who, I don't want to spoil it. It was very easy to follow along. It was somewhat enjoyable, and it didn't stop me from reading the series, so take that as you will. I gave it a 3-star, as I said, and I probably wouldn't feel the need to read it again. Then you have Point of Retreat, which is from the same series. This one is in Will's point of view, and I didn't necessarily feel like this was needed. Not a lot really happened. I gave this one a 3-star as well. It was a bit more info, but I just didn't necessarily feel like I was obsessed with this one. It was more just a bit of a, oh, okay, that's happened and that's happened, that's nice. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't really grabbing me very much, but I did feel quite good that I read it, if you know what I mean. And then the last one of the series is called This Girl. This is basically Will's point of view from book 1, so it's the same story as book 1. I gave this one a 2-star, and I didn't necessarily find it interesting. It was past and present day. I don't want to spoil how and when the past and present day comes about because it will completely spoil it, but essentially it's more of Will telling somebody the story of what happened in the first book, and it was good. It's kind of like Hopeless and Losing Hope, where you've got the girl's point of view in Hopeless and then Dean's point of view in Losing Hope, but it's just not as good as that. So I gave that one a 2-star. I didn't feel like it was necessarily needed, but it did mean I completed the whole series, so it didn't actually count for me starting a new series because I started it and I finished it, so very impressed with myself. Then we have Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. This technically completes the series of like STEM romance books that she's released. There were 3 of them in total, and I have finished them all, and this one was about Jack and Elsie, and I really enjoyed this one. This was kind of like an enemies to lovers vibe. More so enemy on her part, where she kind of hated him already, but he didn't really know that she hated him, and she wasn't really sure why. But essentially you've got Elsie, whose job is to fake date people, to pretend to be their girlfriend for like their family or to impress people, if that makes sense, and she gets paid to do it. And it just so happens that Jack's brother Greg basically hired her to be his girlfriend for like a year or so. So Jack knows of Elsie already, and they kind of meet again in the workplace, and it was a really lovely book. I gave this one a 5-star. I absolutely love Ali Hazelwood's writing, and I'm really excited because we are going to be reading Bride next month, or this month as you're watching this, for our book club pick, so that is really exciting. But I really love this. Again, it was a 5-star read. I'm not going to go into too much detail what it's about because I don't want to spoil books for you guys. I like to go into books blind. If you like to do that as well, I don't like to spoil it, but it's basically a woman in STEM romance, enemies to lovers, very enjoyable, 5 stars. That's all I'm going to say. The next 2 books were both on audiobook. So the first one I read was They Both Die at the End, and this is by Alex. I can't remember what his name is. You're going to see it on screen. Is it Alex? Is it Adam? Might be Adam. I'm leaning more towards Adam. I didn't love this, I'm not going to lie. I gave this one a 2-star. I got this one off my TBR because it had been on there for so long, and I really liked the kind of thought of this book, sort of live life to the fullest as if you had one day to live kind of thing. But you kind of know what happens at the end, and it's almost like it spoils the whole book because it's called They Both Die at the End. So you kind of know what's going to happen at the end, and it kind of made me not excited to read it, hence why I put it off for so long. But yeah, a 2-star read for me. I wasn't obsessed with it. I think it's nice. It was a nice different kind of read. They definitely focused a lot on LGBTQ plus representation, which is fab, but I just didn't love knowing the ending. Following on from that, I read The First to Die at the End, which is basically like a prequel to They Both Die at the End. It's quite dull, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm reading my notes and I put quite dull. 122 chapters though, far too long, based in less than 24 hours, so it drags, and again, 2-star. Both of these books basically are focused within a 24-hour time period, and without giving anything away, essentially everybody on the planet has an app on their phone, and when you're gonna die within 24 hours, you get a phone call and they're like, oh, by the way, like, you're gonna die within 24 hours, just to let you know, and then you have 24 hours to live. You could die at any point, so it's just a bit depressing, and it wasn't really my favourite. Again, that book also focused on the LGBTQ plus kind of romance side of things, which was really nice to read, but again, 2-star, just not my vibe. I don't like knowing the ends of books. I've come to realise Spoilers are just not for me. And the last book I read in January was Never Have I Ever by Stephanie Alves. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I really enjoyed this book. So this one is Grayson and Rosie. It's a dual POV, and essentially Grayson helps Rosie with a kind of bucket list, I suppose. Rosie is very new to the college lifestyle. She's been homeschooled all her life and she has never had that like college experience of experiencing like her first kiss or like skinny dipping, stuff like that. Like she's never done any of that. So she goes to like the campus bad boy who doesn't want a relationship with her at all, and helps her with her list, and obviously feelings occur. This was a 4-star. I absolutely loved it. It was quite spicy, I'm not gonna lie, but it was really enjoyable. The writing style was lovely and I flew through it, I won't lie to you. I think this is on Kindle Unlimited as well, so really easy to read, especially if you've got Kindle Unlimited. It is free technically. Girl math. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I would highly recommend it, and I'm really excited to get into the series. I think the second one is called Spin the Bottle, so I'm definitely gonna have to pick that one up. So those were all of the 14 books I read in January. I would love to know down below, have you read any of these books, or what was your favourite book you read last month? I would absolutely love to know. And if you guys ever want any book recommendations, feel free to ask me in the comments. I will try my best to help you guys out as much as possible, but you can also follow me on Goodreads, where I basically have all the books I own on Goodreads. So in my want to read is my physical TBR, and then obviously all the ones I've read, you can see what I thought about them, all the star ratings and things like that. So that is everything. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys so much. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do, and I will see you in my next one. Bye guys.
Away with a hint of a smile, as if I